Hello everyone, my name is Albert Kao. I'm the localization producer for Fae Round Order, and welcome to Chaldea Broadcasting Station Lite Volume 1. With us today is Michael, the Assistant Localization Producer. Say hi.
Hello, I'm Michael.
And actually, we haven't had Michael with us for a long time.
It has been a couple of years, I think. Yeah.
But we have Michael today because today we're going to we're going to talk a little bit about Lostbelt No.6, at least Act 1, that I hope you guys have already been through it.
You've finished it, right? Because this is gonna have some spoilers, so hopefully you've finished it.
Yes, that's right, because today we will have some spoilers regarding Act 1. So,
please watch responsibly.
Exactly. But because Michael also worked as the lead editor for Fae Round Order for a while now, and I know Michael worked very hard on Lostbelt No.6. So we have Michael here today with us to talk a little bit about some of the localization choices that we made, some of the lines that Michael has worked on, and we're going to kind of actually talk a little bit about that. We'll have some new information for you, but we also kind of make this like a mini localization discussion. We'll go over some of the lines and, you know, at the same time, kind of do a quick recap.
Yeah, let's go back through the. I mean, there's a lot to recap.
Yeah.
It's been a busy Lostbelt for us so far.
Yeah. So this will include story spoilers, so be mindful. Yeah. Let's take a look at the beginning of Lostbelt No.6. So what can you tell us a little bit about
okay, so this Lostbelt starts out very differently than all of the other ones that we know, and the stakes are a little differently too, because as those of you who have finished Lostbelt 5 recall, there's no more Tree of Emptiness in this Lostbelt. It should be gone, but it's not. And we want to figure out what's going on there, and the threat that represents is a little different than the threats that the other Lostbelt have represented so far, and we're going to have to deal with that in different ways. And we begin in a very different place. We're going for a very different reason. We want to get a little bit of that weapon that we saw wipe out a Tree of Emptiness in Lostbelt 5, because I think we can find a few uses for that. But to get into that, we're gonna have to talk to the Lostbelt King, and they're not usually all that fond of us, because we tend to show up and break their stuff.
Right.
So we have a clip, right? We have a video to recap some of the...
we do have a recap video, so let's take a look at the first recap video.
Let's do our first video, and then we can talk a little bit more.
All right, so now we have went through our first recap video that we actually have, some information that we want to
There's
talk
kind
about.
of a lot.
So, Michael, can you tell us a little bit of, what we just seen?
Yeah, okay, so like we were talking about earlier, the thing that's kind of unique about this Lostbelt, or I guess one of many things that is unique about this Lostbelt, is that we start in a very different place. We forget ourselves, we forget our mission, we forget our companions, and we lose them. Mash and Da Vinci are off in different directions at the start of this Lostbelt, and we don't know where they are, what they're doing, or what's happened to them. And that creates some real problems, not least of which being that we don't know who we are and we're in a hostile world. We get a bit of a break meeting a new ally really early on. But I think one of the things that separates this Lostbelt out is that Mash has always been with us every step of the way.
Right.
Whether from the command room providing support or whether she's out on the front lines fighting with us, but she is just not there for so much of this. And I know everybody's really invested in getting her back and finding out what's going on with her. So we'll talk a little bit more about that later, because we also meet a lot of other new characters like Aurora, this definitely wonderfully trustworthy fairy who obviously has our best interests at heart. And so a lot of the fairies that we meet are more or less interested in helping us, and certainly she's one of the fairies out there who's willing to extend a hand.
Right.
But we also meet Tristan, the Knight of the Round Table, who's going to come help us out.
Right.
And we see him fighting one of the new enemies of this Lostbelt, which is Tam Lin Gawain.
And speaking of Tam Lin Gawain,
let's take a look at her.
So what can you tell us about Tam Lin Gawain?
Tam Lin Gawain is a character that we don't know a whole lot about yet. In Act 1, as she shows up, she's terrifying and angry, and when she meets Tristan, she is just not ready to believe that she is dealing with another Knight of the Round Table. And, there is another Tristan.
There is another Tristan.
There is another Tristan. Can we talk about the other Tristan too?
Yes.
Because I feel like there's a lot to talk about there.
We do. But before we go into that, let's take a look at another recap video that we might see a little bit of the other Tristan.
Let's see what she's about.
All right, let's take a look. Okay, so that was a lot going on right there.
Another very busy video.
So can you tell us a little bit about that video?
Yeah, okay, so let's start in Wales, where we get to meet some of the fairies, because Oberon shows up earlier in the story, and I don't think we talked about him, but he's a really interesting character. And he's one of the early people that we meet who's just really completely supportive of everything that we do, and also just takes a personal interest in you, the protagonist.
Right.
And it's interesting to have a character who's serving as sort of a confidant for you when you're missing MASH.
Right.
So he kind of steps in to fill that role in some really interesting ways. But one of the things that he makes a big deal of when you meet him is that he's the king of fairies.
Right.
So we go to Wales, where is his land, and we meet some of the fairies that he sort of rules over. Almost feels like the wrong word after having met those fairies who are just painfully adorable. I don't use that word lightly, but I think you will agree with me on that. But so yeah, then we have the party going to Norwich, and that introduces us to both old and new characters.
Right.
In some interesting ways. And I don't think we want to get too deep into that.
Right.
But we do find out a little bit more about what's going on with MASH and with Da Vinci at this point, what they have been going through and doing.
Right.
And of course, things don't go particularly well at Norwich for anybody. And that is where our other Tristan comes in, who we were mentioning earlier, and just what a delightfully sweet woman she is.
And Tam Lin Tristan, here she is. So, can we talk a little bit about Tam Lin Tristan?
Yeah. I thought we really summed it up with she's a wonderfully sweet woman, and that is all that needed to be. So
there's a lot of blood happening at that scene that was supposed to be.
It was he was having tomato soup and he spilled it.
Right.
So no, Tristan is, in all seriousness, Tristan is just horrible. She's just this viciously cruel character who we don't. Okay, not to say that we don't meet a lot of sadists on our journey. We meet a lot of sadists on our journey, but Tristan in some ways feels. Tam Lin Tristan feels as if she's kind of in a class of her own in that regard, because we've met the enemies who are like squirm, suffer, and laugh, suffer for me. She's just a little more into it than even a lot of other of the more villainous people in Fate that I can think of. So it's interesting to, as we learn a little bit more about her, and we do learn about her, we won't spoil that for you guys, but learning about her gives us some context for that, but also just she's not hanging around the best crowd.
Right.
We did see the gentleman who was with her.
Yeah.
And I'm using that term in the loosest possible sense of the word.
We'll talk about it.
We'll get to that.
We'll get to it.
Yeah, that's a whole separate conversation.
Yes.
But yeah, I don't know what else to say about Tristan other than that as I was going through working on her dialogue, it was just like, make it more horrible.
Right.
Make her sound meaner, make her sound more terrible, but also immature.
Right.
Like she's trying really hard to be the #1 sadist we meet.
Right.
And does she succeed? That's maybe not for us to say.
Maybe that's not for us to say.
I think not. But she's up there.
She's up there.
At the very least.
So, but we also talk about what happened with MASH.
Yeah.
I think we have one more recap video.
Speaking of what happened with MASH, we do have one more recap video.
That kind of show what happened after that scene. So let's take a look.
All right.
So in that recap video, we saw a lot of more characters. We saw Mash return as Tam Lin Lancelot.
Okay, yeah, that's going to be a whole conversation.
I know there's probably a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
So can you give us the short version of what we just saw?
I can only promise to try. Short is such a relative term given what we're dealing with here. But okay, so we'll try to go through beat for beat. We start at the Drukai River where we meet a night call that everyone has. We've kind of learned to be afraid of these things at a couple points through Act 1. So meeting one works out pretty badly for everybody except Oberon, who, as you may have noticed, they don't seem to have what he wants, and he's a little upset about that. But after that, we also meet this completely new character who bears no resemblance to anyone that I've ever seen.
Oh, definitely.
Red Rabbit.
Yeah.
You know what? We could just move on because that's a whole new. I'm not sure who that would be. But speaking of familiar characters, we do get to meet Count Pepperon, who we have seen just everywhere. This guy shows up every time we turn around. But this time he's really here to help us, and we need it because when we do get into town and we do see Mash, as you said, she shows up as Tam Lin Lancelot.
Right.
And that's that's sort of a cause for concern because names matter kind of a lot, particularly in Fate. And as Oberon points out to us, when you start taking on names that are bigger than you, that can be really bad for you. So we meet Mash, and of course our initial instinct is to save her, but I'm going to use this word again, the gentleman who is taking care of her, Spriggan, is not too keen on us getting involved in what his little racket he's got running. And so Count Pepperon shows up and bails us out of a pretty hot situation. But we do, as you saw in the recap video, get to see Mash there towards the end. And I don't think we want to talk too much about what happens there because there's a lot going on. And just play the scenario, please. Because this is not a story beat that you want to miss. But there is one character who's kind of been looming large over this whole Lostbelt, who is more felt than seen. And there she is in the corner, High Queen Morgan. And we see her a little bit in this Lostbelt. We don't meet her yet. We don't meet her in Act 1. But we do see her, and we get to learn a little bit about her. And I think as those of us who are fans of Fate, we've long wondered, what is Morgan Le Fae going to be like? What is she going to be about? And to have that question answered from a localization standpoint is a huge responsibility because everyone has been wondering about this character for years and years. And finally, it comes across our desk, and that's a lot of expectation to live up to. But it was really important to us that she be formal, she'd be regal, stern, powerful, frightening even. And I think Morgan is a very intimidating character in ways that we're not used to seeing because, among other things, she's a scary genius. And we have a lot of geniuses of our own, but Morgan really sets herself apart. So it's very interesting to see her at court and how she rules Camelot and how different that looks than other people we've seen in Camelot.
And actually, it's interesting you brought up Morgan because talking about a scary character, there's also this other gentleman that you keep bringing it up. So let's actually...
we're going to talk about him now?
Yeah, let's actually talk a little bit about the crypter of this Lostbelt, Beryl, who was voiced by Haruki Ishii.
Who was just in the last CBS.
Yes. So actually, can we talk a little bit about Beryl? Because, for crypters, we don't get to hear the voice lines that much, like other characters, or let's say a playable servant in this game. So a lot of what Beryl's like is going to be conveyed via a lot of time, maybe text only. So actually, I want to, what are the writing process like? What are some of the localization choices that you have picked for Beryl?
So I think one of the central things in dealing with Beryl is that he is just viciously cruel. And that is the thing that dominates everything he does. And I think that one of the things that makes Beryl so awful as an antagonist is that he's very casual in his cruelty. We have people who relish cruelty. We have people who view cruelty as a necessity. We have people who accept cruelty, but Beryl is someone who just radiates it always at all times. And he's very, very casual and matter-of-fact about his cruelty. So, you will see him doing these horrible things, and he's just extreme like, well, hey guys, how we doing? We're murdering some people today, and that should be a lot of fun, right? So a lot of our localization choices in dealing with Beryl are making sure that, and some of this comes through in some of the voice lines that we do get for him. He's very chipper. He's kind of enthusiastic about what he's doing, but not in like an unhinged, maniacal sort of way. He's just an upbeat guy who's probably gonna pull your teeth out with some pliers, or something really horrible like that. But a lot of our choices with his dialogue tend to be things like keeping his word choice very casual, keeping it very familiar, because Beryl likes to treat people as if he is on intimate terms with them, meaning that he treats everybody like they're some perverse sort of friend. And I think that makes him so uncomfortable. So that's one of the things that we focus on is he's casual, he's friendly, but in a way that is anything but either of those things.
Thank you. And I think we can't talk any more about that. I think it's better for the players to find out what he's actually like in the story.
I think that you're going to get you'll form a lot of opinions about Beryl over the course of this story.
And speaking of cruel, actually, I want to talk about the battle, some of the story-only battles that take place in Lostbelt 6.
Yeah.
I like the servants that I've spent a lot of time pouring resources into.
Me too, yes.
That doesn't happen a lot in Lostbelt.
I feel very much the same way. I have my team and I like my team and I want to use my team, but that's not an option for a lot of our really big battles, and I think this is something that narratively comes through really well in this Lostbelt, is that there are certain people fighting these battles, so you're going to be fighting these battles with those specific servants, whether you like it or not. And that can make some of these fights very challenging, because you're not using characters that you may be familiar with using, or certainly not a team composition that you're familiar with using. And even if you are, these may not be those characters in the way that you're familiar with using them. And then, of course, there's the fight that I'm sure everybody who's you guys are caught up, right? I assume if you're watching at this point, you're caught up because we're like way deep into the plot. So I hope you're
past the spoiler alert part. That was like the first 5 minutes.
Okay. So,
we'll assume that if you stay with us till this point, you're okay with the spoilers now.
So if you're still here, you probably remember the fight where everybody's level 1. And if you think it's hard having a pre-selected party for a boss fight, have a pre-selected party for a boss fight that's now level 1. Because we're talking about sadism and fate today, so it's a really appropriate topic. That was a really difficult fight, for reasons that fights usually aren't difficult. How did you do? You had fun with that, right?
Let's move on.
That's what I thought.
So we actually went through a lot of Act 1, and we have a little bit of new information for Act 2, including we're going to kind of have a recap on some of the campaign that will help to deal with the cruelty that we just mentioned. So first, let's go over some new information for Lostbelt number 6, Act 2. So first, let's take a look at the prologue text. So here's actually the prologue text for Act 2, and there's a couple interesting information. Here, the main characters finally have a chance to meet High Queen Morgan.
Yeah, and that's going to be I'm really excited for people to see that scene. We worked really hard on that, so Morgan makes an impression. On us and on the characters. So I hope that's a scene that people really enjoy because it's a big moment.
And obviously with the new introduction of story, we also have a cast of new characters. And we will actually like to introduce a couple new servants that'll be available in-game. So first, let's take a look at this MP video.
清掃二重拘束解除カウントダウン
Alright, so first we have SR 4-star Lancer Percival.
Percival is an interesting character who we haven't really met or heard much about yet, but you're gonna meet him and hear a lot about him, so I don't think we should take up their time with that, but definitely an interesting character. But he's not the only, there's a 4-star, so there has to be.
Oh, of course! Now we're done for the information today, thank you.
Oh, that's it, bye everybody!
Bye everybody! We, yes, of course, we have SSR 5-star Servant. But before we go into more information, actually for this Servant, there will be an interesting mechanic that we want to talk about.
There will be.
But first, let's take a look at this MP video.
神明偽装展開精錬たる湖面月光を返す沈めイノセンスアロンライト
So, SSR 5-star Lancer, Tam Lin Lancelot. Woo!
Yeah! Alright, 5-star, let's go!
So, actually, we have seen Tam Lin Lancelot for a couple times in the story.
We have run into her a couple of times, and she's kind of a hard one to get a handle on.
Right.
What's she up to? What does she want? What is she doing here? Play to find out.
Play to find out.
But you can still summon her.
Yes, and
you should, because there's some really interesting mechanics at play with this character.
So,
can we talk about that?
Yes, let's talk about her new skill. So, for Tam Lin Lancelot, her third skill is actually very interesting. That when you use her third skill, she actually changed her battle sprite.
Right, yeah.
And not just that, her third skill actually changes depending on which ascension she's in. Her third ascension, her third skill changes.
Yeah.
And when she uses her third skill and her first or second ascension, she changes to her third ascension stage, and the skill will also change to match her ascension stage. And not only that,
not just the skill.
Her Noble Phantasm also changes. So on her ascension stage 1 and 2, she's a single target MP.
Single target arts.
And then for her third ascension is AoE Buster.
Yes. And so those of us who have seen other servants, well, really the other servant who can change their card type, this is very different than that.
Right.
Because we're not talking about just changing card type. This is changing the targeting type of your NP.
Right.
And this opens up just like a whole mess of possibilities that nobody has a kit like this in FGO, and it's fascinating.
And it actually makes her very versatile to a lot of situations, because a lot of times we want to, we want to bring, let's say, a single target for maybe just dealing with bosses or dealing with high difficulty enemies. But as the content gets harder and harder, a lot of times we have one high difficulty boss accompanied by
a number of difficult assistants.
I would say like
little helpers,
like critters.
Yeah.
So and obviously the boss will come with multiple HP bars.
Yeah. Yeah.
So be able to kind of use her skill sets, properly, is very kind of important going forward.
It is, and it makes her a natural choice for a lot of different kinds of fights. Where typically, I know when I'm building my teams, it's like, okay, is this a boss fight? Is this wave clearing?
Right.
And I have different servants that I'll bring depending on which. She can do both of those things.
Right.
And you can bring her for both of those sorts of fights, or a fight that is both of those things.
Right.
Which is just like, as servants go, that really moves her high on the list of like, this is someone that I need in my Chaldea.
Yeah. And now that we talked a lot about her transformation, actually let's look at the video of her, her MP, her Ascension Stage 3 Noble Phantasm video. So let's take a look. So that was really cool, and I can't wait for the players to kind of come up with their strategies or kind of give a little bit of hints or their party makeup on how they will bring Tam Lin Lancelot.
Yeah, I'm really interested in seeing what people are going to do with this character because she's versatile in a way that we've just not had before.
And Percival and Tam Lin Lancelot will be in the Avalon le Fae Tam Lin Lancelot pickup summon. That'll be available in as when Act 2
Right,
releases.
yeah.
So with every time we drop new content, we always have animation trailers.
Yeah, we do.
And that's no different for Act 2. So we actually have 2 animation trailers, so we'll look at them back to back. It will be the barrel version and the Oberon version. So let's take a look.
欲しいものをもらうだけさ。フェイトグランドオーダーコスモス・イン・ザ・ロストベルト妖精円卓領域アバロン・ルフェ血染めの冠お一つどうだい。
すべての鐘は鳴り響いた。フェイトグランドオーダーコスモス・イン・ザ・ロストベルト妖精円卓領域アバロン・ルフェ巡礼の旅の終わり冬の玉座は誰の手に。
Alright, so that was the animation trailer.
Excellent
Act 2.
trailers.
The trailers were produced by A1 Pictures and it will be available on the Aniplex of America official YouTube channel.
Definitely rewatch it.
Yep, so please go check it out. And now that we have released all this information, when is it coming out?
Why are you asking me? What? I'm not the guy.
When is it coming out?
When it?
Oh, okay. So we actually have the release date for Act 2. So
We do.
the release date for Act 2. Why are we playing all this secrecy? We kind of announced it at the last stream already.
Yeah,
that's playing this
it's at the
secrecy?
it's coming out when we told you it was coming
I
out.
kind of like keep people, and maybe we changed it. Maybe a lot of time production stuff.
I actually have to go finish it.
So, Lostbelt No.6 Act 2 will be coming out right after this stream.
Yes.
You do have to clear, obviously, Act 1.
You really wouldn't. This is not so much a requirement as like
Yeah.
you wouldn't want us to put you in Act 2 if you hadn't done Act 1 yet. It would be really confusing.
So once you clear all the quests, all the main story quests for Act 1, the Act 2 quest will show up. So we are looking forward to seeing people's reaction for Act 2.
Yes.
It is a massive, massive story content. So we hope people enjoy it. And to help people actually clear through the Lostbelt campaign and kind of get to Lostbelt No.6, whether you're just kind of like, oh, as Lostbelt No.6 come out, I just want to kind of catch up. We actually have a couple campaign for you. So we have the Story Clear support campaign.
Yeah, it's great to see the Leyline Stones come back because that's just, there are some really difficult fights in the Lost Belts, and these are a really nice way to be able to get through them. So please take the time while these are around and use them to catch up if you've fallen behind. Because this is not a story you want to miss.
Yeah. And then, you can use them in any main story battle.
Yeah.
So I know even before getting to Lostbelt No.6, there's actually a lot of difficult content, difficult battle in the previous Lostbelts. And for limited time, the AP cost for the main quest in Part 1 and Part 2 through Chapter 5.5 will be 1/4.
Yeah.
So use this opportunity to go through the stories to catch up. Lostbelt No.6 is a story that you don't want to miss. So,
No matter how much or how little catching up you have to do, this is exactly the time to do it.
and in addition to that, just a little bit extra incentive, we also have main story clear missions added to the master missions, and you can use this opportunity to earn more Saint Court.
I find that always motivates me to, get in gear. Especially given the new servants that were just announced, this is a really good time to get that extra little bit.
And in addition, we have new story clear support, new mission added, and new rewards added to the commemorative missions. And that gave us even more Saint Courts.
I can't think of a better reason.
And we will have hero crystals available as well. So that will definitely help the players.
That extra little bit of attack and HP. I'm embarrassed to admit how many times I've had a servant survive by 1 or 2 HP, and it's because of those crystals. So I'm always happy to get more.
And then to obviously unlock the from 1,000 to 2,000.
Yep.
you need to have all the 3 stars full feeded, so you need to have them to plus 1,000 already. So, and I know you can get them from event or you can get them from Mana Prison shop,
Yes.
but having this a little bit here, you can always save the Mana Prisons for the Mana Prison shop exclusive.
You can, and I mean, you're just getting them for something that you were going to do anyway. So I can't think of a better reason.
And you want to level more servants.
You want to level more servants because as Lostbelt 6 is, I think, demonstrating to a lot of people, and all of the Lostbelts before 6, this is the time to have your servants leveled and as powerful as you can make them, because these bosses are no longer playing around, and even a lot of the regular enemies are not playing around anymore.
Yeah. So you want to use this opportunity to save up more your resources.
Yes.
And that's it for all the information we have today. I think we actually talked a lot about all the new information we have for Act 2, and we actually went over a lot of our kind of localization stuff. We went over a lot of story content. We hope you guys like this kind of content. You know, it's always a lot of fun talking about what we do with our localization, our editing process, our localization choices.
I love getting to talk about it.
And we hope you guys enjoy it. And if we have more chances in the future, you know, I would definitely like to have Michael back on so we can talk more about, you know, our localization.
We always can find more things to talk about with the localization.
So thank you guys for watching.
Thank you guys.
Hope you guys enjoy Act 2, and we'll see you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.